Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Gonna be back. So it's Wednesday evening, about 6 p.m. Eastern time. And what I want to do is something a little bit different. So it felt like Wednesday was a little bit of a quiet day. Obviously NFL draft is coming up. There's like a calm before the storm there. And even in college hoops, we've talked so much about the portal, but it didn't feel like there was a ton of moving and shaking on Wednesday. And so what I want to do is go ahead and do something a little bit different. Feels like over the last really month, 5 weeks, whatever it's been since the portal's opened, it's just been go, 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 go. Who's coming? Who's going? Who's committing? What does it mean? Who do they fit in with? Whatever. And I bring it up because what I want to do today is take a step back and do something fun. I want to look at, in my opinion, the 10 best players in the college hoops transfer portal right now, according to my rankings at AaronTorresOnline.com. And what I want to go ahead and do is go ahead, put a little crystal ball in for where all these players are and where I think they are going to end up. Couple notes here. One, this stuff moves fast, okay? So whatever you're watching, a player, 2, 3, 4, maybe off the board by then. I'm just telling you what's going on right now as I'm recording right now, so always be aware of that. And then also, as the bottom line scroller tells you, make sure you're following CBB Transfers on Twitter and Instagram. That is run by me and my team. I got a lot of great guys behind the scenes that help me out with stuff. CBB Transfers Twitter. Also, we just started the Instagram page, which is closing in on 200 followers. You want to be one of the first 200? Go ahead, subscribe right now. CBB Transfers on Instagram. All right, so let's go ahead and get into my top 10 players. And look, I know there's going to be some people, they want to start, the old Drake started from the bottom. Now we're here. No. We're starting at the top with the number one player on my transfer portal rankings. It is Johnell Davis, 4-year player from Florida Atlantic. By now, I think most of you know his story, but was a huge part of last year's Final Four team. Probably heard Florida Atlantic was in the Final Four. Came back this year and was even better. 18 points per game, 41% three-point shooting for a 6'4 guard. I think he plays bigger than 6'4, average 6 boards per game. And I think what's worth noting with Johnell Davis, he proved that he can do it against the best programs in the country and the best teams in the country and the highest level of college basketball. This season, 35 points in that pre-Christmas game against Arizona in Vegas. 26 points against Texas A&M. 24 points against College of Charleston, which made the NCAA tournament. So this guy was great in Florida Atlantic's biggest games. Now he is the most pursued player in the transfer portal. As far as his recruitment is concerned, a couple things. One, there was that report that there was issues with admissions at Michigan. I have yet to be able to confirm it. I don't know if it's true. But what I can tell you is I don't think it matters because I do think a new favorite has emerged in his recruitment. I think it's John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks. And it's funny, I mentioned this on Tuesday's Aaron Torres pod, but to me, this fit makes sense, okay? And it's for two reasons. One, fourth-year college player has the COVID year, and a lot of these fourth, fifth-year guys that have the extra year, you know what they're doing? They're saying, I'm a fringe NBA player. I'm not an NBA player at all. Let me go ahead and just get a bunch of money, okay? I think it's probably what happened with Jeremy Roach at Baylor. There's a couple other players that come to mind. But with Johnell Davis, first of all, Arkansas, we know they got a ton of money. I'll tell you this, on Wednesday morning, I talked to the parent of a very high-profile player. I won't tell you if it's a transfer, if it's this, if it's that, who it is, out of respect, obviously. But we were talking about different schools. He said, yeah, Torres, there's no doubt Arkansas has the most money to mess around with. So there's that element of it. They're going to take care of you financially. But then also, and I think this is an important part, you can criticize John Calipari for whatever, but Johnell Davis is probably a second-round pick, undrafted right now. There is no person in college basketball that is better at taking you in 1 year and allowing you to win at a high level. Now, it wasn't high enough in the tournament, but win at a high level while also getting you ready for the NBA than John Calipari. And I know what everyone's going to say, oh, Oakland this, St. Peter's that. And what I would say is I get it. I do. But at the same time, the development part of it speaks for itself. Rob Dillingham, nobody had as a projected top 5 pick going into this season. He's going to be a top 5 pick. Nobody had Reed Sheppard as a top 10 pick. He's going to be a top 10 pick. Some of it is on them. They worked hard. They deserve it. They deserve credit. But John Calipari deserves some credit too. And so when I look at John L. Davis, I see a guy that I think the Arkansas fit makes sense. They need players. He's going to be put in a position to succeed. Calipari said he wants to kind of balance the old guys and the young guys, and he puts dudes in the league. John L. Davis, number 1 on my list. I will give Arkansas the prediction in his recruitment. Number 2, Koby Brea. Fascinating player, fascinating recruitment, okay? 6'6" guard, played at Dayton. And the stat on him that I keep throwing out, statistically, he was the best shooter in college basketball this past year. Now, I know other players, including Reed Sheppard, shot a higher percentage, but according to the NCAA stat book, and I think Reed Sheppard, Billis mentioned this all the time during the games, Reed Sheppard either didn't play enough minutes, didn't shoot it and make enough attempts, whatever. But the highest three-point shooting percentage in college basketball, according to the NCAA stat book, in 2024 was Koby Brea. 49.8% shooting from 3 on 201 attempts. So the dude puts the ball in the basket, and now he is in the portal, 1 year of eligibility left. And as we've talked about, he has the wildest top 5 I have ever seen, as his final 5 are Kansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, and UConn. Now, in terms of his recruitment, he is visiting UConn this weekend, but a couple things stand out to me in terms of his recruitment. I think RJ Davis's decision to come back to North Carolina probably eliminates North Carolina from the mix. I think on top of that, Duke's got a lot of guys in that backcourt. I don't know, with Tyrese Proctor, Caleb Foster, some of the freshmen coming in, it feels like a little bit of a crowded backcourt to me. And it certainly feels like a crowded backcourt at Kansas, where they have brought in Zeke Mayo. They already have DeJuan Harris. They're adding AJ Storr. They're adding Riley Kugel. There's only so many spots and shots to go around. I don't think Kansas makes sense. So to me, this comes down to UConn and Kentucky. By the way, as I'm recording here, UConn has yet to receive a commitment from Liam McNeely, so they need guards and they need them in a hurry. And I just bring it up to say that I think right now it is probably a UConn versus Kentucky battle. And I think it's going to come down to one of those two schools. Now, UConn, we know what they have to offer. 2-time national champion, put players in position to succeed, would look great in that Cam Spencer spot. But I think the only thing that I worry about a little bit with UConn is, remember, they don't have the NIL that other schools have. And if it comes down to NIL, if Koby Brea says it's my 5th year, this might be my biggest payday of my career, I got to take advantage, UConn cannot put up the money, and UConn won't put up the money that a Kentucky would, that even a Kansas would, that a whoever would. Dan Hurley has said many times, we want NIL. We never want to lose a guy because we're not even competitive, but we never want kids choosing us solely because of NIL. And so that's the thing with Kentucky. Maybe Kentucky just is the better spot for him. But certainly I think that if you're talking about a guy that, if it comes down to NIL, I think Kentucky would probably win. If you're making me make a prediction right now, Koby Brea, I will go with UConn. Number 3 on my list, little bit of a controversial one. I don't really understand the hate for this kid, but there is a lot of hate out there. It is DJ Wagner, who played this last year at Kentucky. I understand at one point he was the number 1 player in America. I understand he did not play like the number 1 player in America at Kentucky. But a couple things. 1, he was injured for a good part of the year. 2, he played with other good players, and that's an important part to me, is the idea that, listen, it didn't go to plan. He didn't at least publicly complain. And then beyond that, and this is the important part, he was a good soldier. He still started. But when Reed Sheppard had to play 37 minutes and Rob Dillingham had to play 28 minutes and he was playing 14 minutes, he took it like a champ. To me, he was a great teammate, and I thought he was pretty good early in the season when he was healthy. By the way, the disastrous season, he averaged 9 points, just under 10 points, and 3.5 assists per game. Most freshmen, you average 10 points and 3 assists in the SEC. That's a good season. Obviously, it was a disappointment. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy, and the 3-point shot has to come around. In terms of his recruitment, it's been very, 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 very quiet. But what I've kind of heard, he's finishing out his semester at Kentucky, and he knows he's going to have options. I don't think coming back to Kentucky is a real thing. I've heard a lot of people just say, and if Mark Pope just wants to start fresh, his own guys, his own roster, no real holdovers from the Cal era, I get it. I'm not going to criticize him. I'm not going to knock him. He's doing it his way. But like I said, I think Wagner, I think, is going to wait for the end of the semester, then really ramp up the process. My guess is the ties with the Wagner family to Kenny Payne, the ties with the Wagner family to John Calipari. I have to think that Arkansas would be considered the favorite for DJ Wagner. That is an educated guess. I don't think they've really started the process of diving too deep into the transfer process, but go ahead and give me Arkansas with DJ Wagner. Number 4 on this list, really interesting player, Rylan Griffin, was at Alabama, part of that Final Four team. Average 11.5 points, 39% shooting from 3, and oh, by the way, was at his best late in the season. 3 straight double-figure games going into the UConn Final Four game, 19 points against North Carolina. Listen, I'll be quick on this one. Every sign points to him ultimately ending up at Kansas. If he does, good for him. The talk is that Kansas feels like they're in good shape. They want one more 3-point shooter, and it feels like he is the guy that they have targeted. He is a good fit. Kansas has always historically recruited well from the Dallas area. That's where he's originally from. Rylan Griffin, go ahead and give me him going to Kansas. Another guy who's really kind of had a quiet recruitment, Vlad Golden from Florida Atlantic. 7'1" center, obviously a starter on a Final Four team. He actually began his career at Texas Tech. A lot of people don't remember that, but was really good during that Final Four run, was even better this year. 15.5 points per game, 7 boards, 2 blocks per game. Another very quiet recruitment, but this is one that feels like it is going to end up as being ultimately being a Michigan follow Dusty May to play for Michigan, playing at Michigan. We mentioned there were some reports about some transcript stuff with with Janelle Davis. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it'll be an issue with Vlad Golden. Remember, Michigan's taken a bunch of transfers this offseason, so it doesn't seem as though it's as big of an issue. Maybe there was something specific with Janelle Davis, if you believe that story. Vlad Golden, it seems like it's going to be Michigan. They did take another center, by the way, Danny Wolf from Yale, but in my opinion, that's probably the right landing spot for him. Let's keep it going. Let's go ahead and start to wrap. We are in the back half with number 6, Cliff Omoyori. Fascinating deal, right? Played 4 years at Rutgers, 11 points per game, 8 boards per game this past season. One of the more interesting recruitments in the portal this offseason. Let me explain why. This was a kid who entered the portal before the NCAA tournament started. So remember, the portal opens the day after Selection Sunday, okay? And this kid entered the portal the day after Selection Sunday, and he's still in the portal. And I think, listen, and I'm not going to criticize anybody. This is a kid, I think he's weighing all his options. He knows he's the perfect example of a kid. He's played 4 years of college basketball. He's got 1 year. He's not an NBA player. He's a really good college player. Let me go make some real NIL money. So we've heard everything under the sun with this kid. First, I was hearing St. John's early in the process. Then I think UConn reached out at some point. Then Kentucky and Kansas got involved. That was before Calipari even left left Kentucky for Arkansas. Well, the latest 3 visits set up, Kansas State, Georgetown, and Alabama. Your guess is as good as mine. I do think Alabama losing Nick Pringle to the portal makes him kind of a priority. Georgetown, I think, is also recruiting Agana Onyenso from Kentucky. So it feels like all 3 of those teams desperately need a big. I don't have a great feel. I'll say Kansas State. Jerome Tang's a beast in the portal. But that's one I don't think I have a great feel for. Another big guy, Jonas Aidoo from Tennessee. 11.7 boards, nearly 2 blocks per game. He's a guy we've talked a lot about. 7-footer, knows the SEC, very comfortable with about 5 feet from the basket. Now, he is not a guy. He's not a guy that's going to stretch you out. He's not a 20-foot 3-point guy. Like, that's just not his game. That's not his style. But within 5 feet, he's great. Rim protector, shot blocker, finisher, throw up lobs, whatever. Bring it up. Really good player. He has been in the portal for a while. Feels like this is coming down the home stretch. He visited Baylor last weekend. Now, it's interesting because Baylor was the perceived favorite before he ended up going to Baylor. comes out of the weekend, does not commit. That is an interesting twist and maybe says that his recruitment's a little bit more wide open than people think. He is expected to visit Arkansas in the coming days. Also a Final Four with North Carolina and Alabama as well. So as you can see, Alabama's prioritizing the 5 spot as well. I still think Baylor's the team to beat. We'll see if John Calipari can sell them at Arkansas, NIL, etc. But go ahead and give me Baylor for Jonas Aidoo. Really quickly, final couple ones. Cade Tyson, 6'6" wing, played at Belmont the last couple years. 16 points per game, 6 rebounds. How about this? 46% shooting from beyond the three-point arc. So this dude is a bucket, three-point shooting. And he is a kid that basically over the last couple weeks, it feels like it has become a Tennessee versus North Carolina battle. Tennessee obviously needs somebody to replace the scoring of Dalton Knecht. But he visited North Carolina this past weekend. Like I said, about 6'7". I think I might have said 6'6", but 6'7", 6'8". And what I'll say about him is this: I do think RJ Davis potentially coming back eliminated Kobe Brea from North Carolina. I don't think it necessarily eliminates Cade Tyson as well. If you made me pick, I'd probably say North Carolina. I don't feel great about that over Tennessee, but North Carolina needs a dude. North Carolina is the blue blood. Go ahead and give me North Carolina. Last two, Aiden Mahaney. So if you follow me on Twitter, Aaron_Torres. I'm relatively close to this recruit. Not relatively, but I do know Aiden Mahaney's AAU program, West Coast Elite. They do an incredible job. They had Josh Green, who's in the NBA, Nico Mannion, who is a McDonald's All-American. I've known those guys forever. They're great people. Ryan Silver does an incredible job with that program. If you follow me on Twitter, I kind of put out earlier this week, Aiden Mahaney, by the way, 6 foot, leading scorer at St. Mary's 2 years in a row. He has led 2 years in a row. He's averaged about 14 points per game. Really good player. And when it comes to his recruitment, as I put out the other day, he has already visited Creighton, visited Virginia this week. The plan is to visit UConn this weekend. And then I was told that a Kentucky visit was potentially on the table. And according to Jeff Goodman on Tuesday night, it sounds as though Kentucky will get a visit. I was told there's the possibility that Florida, remember Todd Golden was a West Coast guy, San Francisco, also USC and Eric Musselman could get a visit as well. I think it'll probably come down to those 4. And I'll just say this. I don't think Aiden Mahaney knows right now where he's going. I think he is going in with an open mind on all these visits. I'm not even going to speculate. The only thing I do feel, I don't think Virginia is really a realistic landing spot for him. So even saying anything feels like total speculation. I think it'll come down to Creighton, UConn, maybe Kentucky. And again, a lot of it is moving parts, right? UConn still recruiting Liam McNeely as of 6:19 Eastern. He has not committed. Still recruiting Kobe Brea. Don't think there's room for all 3. So we got to see what happens with UConn. We got to see what happens at Kentucky, etc. Last guy, fascinating guy, Great Osabor. 17 points per game, 9 rebounds, Mountain West Player of the Year this year. Really, really, really good player. Really good, really physical, really tough, whatever. Over the last couple days, we saw the news. He has cut his list to 4. Will take 4 visits in the coming weeks. He will visit Kentucky, then Louisville, then Texas Tech, and Washington. Washington, remember, is coached by Danny Sprinkle, who coached him both at Montana State. Remember, he began his career at Montana State, then from Montana State went to Utah State. Danny Sprinkle was the coach in both spots. So he followed Danny Sprinkle from Montana State to Utah State. And the question becomes, can Danny Sprinkle one more time get him to Washington? I'll just say this to me. By the way, Washington, I'll tell you this. Washington probably has better NIL money than anybody realizes or anybody will give them credit for. But I do still think at the end of the day, it is going to be, I do think it is going to be at the end of the day, Kentucky. I think this is a guy that Kentucky has prioritized. It is clear with the Jaden Quaintance news of Tuesday that the visit was on and then it was off. I think they're prioritizing older players. And of course, Great Osabor has ties to Amari Williams. They played together. They're both from England. They have the same NIL agent. Great Osabor, I will predict, goes to Kentucky. That is my final list. John L. Davis to Arkansas, Kobe Brea, UConn, DJ Wagner, no real feel, but I'll say Arkansas, Rylan Griffin, Kansas, Vlad Golden, Michigan, Cliff Omoyori. Think I said K-State. I don't feel great about it. Jonas Adu, Baylor, Cade Tyson, Carolina, Aiden Mahaney. I'm not even going to, he's very early in the process. Great Osabor headed to Kentucky. By the way, worth noting, keep your ear to the ground. I think there's more big names that will still enter before May 1st. We'll have you updated on everything. Make sure you're subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube. New clips, new videos going up every day. Also, CBB Transfers on Twitter and